You've been in that room. You said something. Something real. Something you actually thought about. And nobody reacted. The conversation just moved on, like you weren't even there. And the worst part, someone else said almost the exact same thing 10 minutes later, and suddenly, everyone was nodding, laughing, paying attention. That wasn't a coincidence. And it wasn't about what you said. There is a silent rule, operating in every social interaction, in every office, every college dorm, every first date, every group chat, and nobody ever teaches it to you. Not your parents, not your book, not any self-help book you've ever read. And as long as you don't know it, you will keep getting overlooked, talked over, and quietly dismissed, no matter how smart, how talented, or how genuinely good you are. Stay with me, because what I'm about to show you changes everything. Let me tell you about Marcus. Marcus was the kind of guy everyone would describe as a genuinely good dude. Smart, thoughtful, always had something interesting to say. Had been at his company for 3 say. Genuinely good, consistently doing solid work, but every time a promotion conversation came up, his name somehow never made the short list. Every time a team project needed a leader, someone else got the nod. In meetings, he'd raise a point, and it would land flat. 2 minutes later, his colleague Jordan would say something similar, and the whole room would pivot toward Jordan like a compass needle. Finding north. Marcus thought it was his ideas, so he worked on his ideas. He researched. More prepared, harder, came with data. Still, nothing changed. He thought it was his communication style, so he took a public speaking course, practiced in the mirror, slowed his pace down. Still, nothing. Here's what Marcus didn't understand, and what most people in his exact situation never figure out. The problem was never his ideas. The problem was never his voice. The problem was invisible. It was operating underneath the surface of every interaction, and he had zero awareness. It even existed. In 2008, 2 sociologists at Columbia University, after studying thousands of workplace interactions, discovered something that quietly shook the field of organizational psychology. They found that in most social and professional groups, influence has almost nothing to do with the quality of what you say. It has everything to do with a specific set of unspoken behavioral signals that people unconsciously broadcast or fail to broadcast before they do even open their mouth. They called it pre-interaction positioning. Most people have never heard, and the gap between people who naturally do it and people who don't is the exact gap between Marcus and Jordan. People who get ignored aren't ignored because they're invisible. They're ignored because they're accidentally signaling through tiny invisible behaviors that what they're about to say doesn't need to be taken seriously. And here's the terrifying part. You're probably doing it right now without knowing it, every single day. But here's where it gets interesting. Here's the silent rule that nobody teaches you. Presence is claimed before it's given. Let me say that again, because it sounds simple, but it's not. Presence. The feeling that you matter, that your words carry, weight that people should pay attention when you speak, is never something other people hand to you. It is something you either claim for yourself before the interaction begins, or you lose it before you say a single word. Think of it like real estate. In any social environment, psychological space is limited. People are unconsciously dividing up that space. The second they walk into a room or join a conversation, and here's the brutal truth. If you don't claim your space first, someone else claims it for you, and they leave you whatever's left over. This works. The 3 invisible channels. Channel 1, stillness. Most people, when they feel ignored, respond by doing more. They talk faster. They talk louder. They lean in harder. They try to fill the silence. And every single one of those behaviors signals anxiety. And anxiety is social repellent. The human brain is wired. This goes back to our primate ancestors, to assign status based on who appears most at ease. The person in the room who is most still, most unhurried, most genuinely comfortable in the silence is unconsciously read by everyone else as the person with the most power. Stillness isn't passivity. Stillness is a statement. I am not afraid of this moment. Person A walks into a meeting, immediately starts fidgeting, checks their phone, jumps in to fill every gap. Silence. Nobody remembers what they said. Person B walks in, sits down, takes a breath, and doesn't feel the need to prove anything yet. Before person B says one word, the room is already slightly oriented toward them. Channel 2. Selective speech. Here's a pattern I want you to notice in your process. The people whose opinions you most respect, the ones whose words actually land when they speak. They don't talk constantly. They don't feel compelled to have a comment for everything. When they do speak, it feels like it matters, because it is rare. Psychologists call this the scarcity effect applied to social currency. When your words are everywhere, they are worth nothing. When your words are deliberate and selective, each one carries weight. The irony. Most people who feel ignored respond by talking more. That is the exact opposite of what works. Channel 3. The anchor response. This one is the most practical and the most immediately powerful. Every conversation has what researchers call anchor moments. Moments where someone says something that the group hasn't quite responded to yet. Whoever responds to that anchor moment first, and most directly, becomes the temporary social leader of that conversation thread. Most people let these moments pass. They wait too long. They second-guess themselves. They're not sure if it's place to respond. The person who gets listened to, they've trained themselves to recognize anchor moments and step into them without hesitation. So what's the actual solution? Now, we get to the moments part that actually changes your life. These aren't theories. These are specific, practical behaviors you can start using today in your next meeting, your next social interaction, your next conversation with someone who matters. Step 1. Own your physical space before you speak. Before you say a single word in any interaction, a meeting, a party, a date, a job interview, take 3 seconds to deliberately settle into your physical space. Plant your feet, relax your shoulders, let your breath drop. This sounds almost embarrassingly simple, but here is what's actually now happening. You're resetting your nervous system from a threat state to a stable state, and your body language is broadcasting that reset to every person in the room. People around you feel it. They can't explain why, but they feel it. You've just done in 3 seconds what most people spend years trying to fake with expensive clothes, rehearsed lines, and performative confidence. Real-world example. You're walking into a performance review at work. Every instinct says rush in, be agreeable, fill the silence. Instead, pause at the door, 1 breath, walk in at 70 of your normal pace. Sit down before you start talking. You just changed how your manager reads you before you work. Said hello. Step 2. Introduce the pause. After someone asks you a question, any question, wait 1 to work. 2 seconds before answering. Just 1 to 2 seconds. Not 5, not awkward silence. Just a brief, deliberate pause. What that pause communicates is enormous. It says your thoughts are worth waiting for. It says you're not desperate for approval. It says you're thinking, not just reacting. Compare that to the person who immediately fires back an answer, sometimes before the question is even fully asked. That behavior, as harmless as it seems, signals anxiety and the subconscious need to please. Real-world example. On a first date, she asks what you do for work. Instead of jumping in, you pause, smile slightly, then answer. In that moment, something shifts. You became slightly more interesting without changing a single word of your answer. Step 3. Speak in declarations, not apologies. Here is the dark truth I told you was coming. Most people, especially people who grew smiles, up being told to be humble, to not take up too much space, to be agreeable, have unconsciously trained themselves to speak in a way that pre-apologizes for their own existence. They say things like, "I don't know, maybe this is wrong, but," or, "This might be a stupid idea, but," or, "Sorry. Can I just add something?" Every one of those phrases is a signal to the group. Don't take this seriously. And the group doesn't. Not because they're cruel, but because the brain follows the instructions it's given. You told them not to take you seriously. They listened. Start speaking in declarations, not arrogantly, not aggressively, just directly. "Here's what I think. Is the move here is X." No apology, no permission request, no preemptive self-dismissal. Watch how differently people respond to the same idea when it's delivered that way. Real-world example. In a college group project meeting, instead of, "I was kind of thinking, maybe we could try a different approach. I don't know if it'll work," you say, "I think we're approaching this wrong. Here is a stronger angle." Same idea. Completely different impact. Step 4. Let silence work for you. After you say something important, stop. Don't immediately follow it up. Soften it. Don't explain it again. Let the silence do the work. Silence after a strong statement is one of the most powerful social tools in existence, and almost nobody uses it because the discomfort of silence triggers most people's anxiety reflex, and they immediately start filling it. The person who can sit in the brief silence after making a point comfortably without flinching is broadcasting a level of self-assurance that is almost magnetically attractive to the people around them. Real-world example. You pitch an idea at work. You finish. You stop. You look around the room calmly. The silence is 3 seconds. That's it, 3 seconds. But in those 3 seconds, your idea becomes 40 more memorable than if you'd nervously added 3 more sentences of justification. Step 5. The anchor. Claim. Go back to what I explained earlier. Anchor moments. Your job now is to start recognizing them and responding first. Not loudly, not aggressively, just first. Someone in a group says something that hasn't been responded to yet. You respond directly, clearly, without hedging. In doing this consistently over time, you are literally rewiring how your social group categorizes you. You shift from background presence to social anchor. And once that shift happens, people start orienting toward you, not because you demanded it, but because you earned the positioning. But, theories. One final thing. Nobody talks about, everything I just gave you is real. It works. And you can. Start today, but here is the final truth. The one that pulls it all together. The reason this silent for rule exists. The reason nobody teaches it is because the people who naturally follow it never had to learn it consciously. They absorbed it from their environment, from confident parents, from status peer groups, from early experiences that told them, you belong here. They don't know. They're doing it, it's just how they move through the world. But what that means for you is this: it's learnable. All of it. Every one of these behaviors is a skill, not a personality trait. You are not fundamentally someone who gets ignored. You are someone who was never handed the instruction manual. Until right now. Marcus, by the way, he spent 4 months deliberately practicing these 5 behaviors. He didn't announce it to anyone. He didn't transform overnight. He just quietly, consistently changed how he showed up. 14 months after he first heard about pre-interaction, positioning, he was promoted to team lead, not because he became a different person, because he stopped accidentally telling everyone to overlook him. You were never invisible. You were just following the wrong rules. Now you know the right one. If this hit different, you already know what to do.